I've been using the Sennheiser Accentum Wireless for the past week, and there's one thing I noticed immediately. The battery life is absurd, but that's not what surprised me most about these headphones. When I first picked these up, I was struck by how light they felt. You almost expect something heavier when you see the full-size over-ear design. The cups sit against your head with a noticeable clamp force, the kind that makes you aware they're there for the first couple hours of wearing them. If you wear glasses like I do, you'll feel the arms getting pressed into your temples by the tops of the ear cups, which becomes less comfortable over time. The entire construction is plastic with a leatherette coating on the ear pads that feels smooth under your fingers but picks up warmth from your skin fairly quickly. The headband padding only covers the top half of the band, which means if you have a larger head, you might feel the hard plastic underneath where the cushioning ends. I kept adjusting them because the ear cups have this tendency to shift position slightly when you move your head. They're not as stable, but you feel them respond to your movements more than some tighter clamping headphones. The hinges fold flat with a satisfying click, but they don't collapse into a smaller footprint, which makes them a bit bulky to stow in a bag. There's no carrying case included, so I found myself being more cautious about where I toss them. The right ear cup houses 4 small tactile buttons, tiny raised knobs that you find by touch, but pressing them means pushing the cup against your head, which can break the seal momentarily. The first time I put this on and started playing music, I immediately noticed the bass presence. It's heavy, warm, and delivers that satisfying low-end thump without completely drowning out the mids. It reminded me of listening to hip-hop or EDM on headphones, tuned specifically for those genres, where the rumble becomes part of the physical experience rather than just the auditory one. After a few hours of listening though, I started noticing the vocals and higher frequency instruments felt slightly veiled, like there was a thin layer between me and the clarity I was expecting. It's not a deal breaker, but sometimes it does this little thing where cymbal hits sound duller than they should. And vocal details get pushed back just slightly in denser mixes. I found myself reaching for the EQ in the Sennheiser Smart Control app to nudge the 3 kHz range up a bit, which brought some more presence to voices and guitars. Compared to the Momentum 4, which I used before, the Accentum feels narrower in soundstage and less detailed. You can hear the difference when you're listening to layered tracks where backing vocals and subtle instrumental textures should stand out. The Momentum 4 opens up the sound more, gives you deeper bass, and pulls up finer details that the Accentum smooths over. But here's the thing, the Accentum costs significantly less, and for most casual listening, that difference only becomes obvious when you're actively comparing them side by side. The noise cancellation is where I felt the most compromise. It handles mid to high frequency sounds decently, office chatter, keyboard clicks, and AC hum get reduced to a manageable background hum. But on the bus or during a flight, the low rumble of engines pushes through more than I expected, especially compared to something like the Sony WH-1000XM4, which just erases that low-end noise more effectively. I wouldn't call it bad, but if you're someone who commutes daily on noisy transport, you'll notice it's not quite blocking out everything you want it to. When you scroll through the Sennheiser product page for the Accentum Wireless, you can immediately see what the company wants you to believe this product is about. They really highlight the 50-hour battery life in the Sennheiser sound, which does match my experience. The battery genuinely lasts for days of heavy use, but what surprised me is how little they bring up the fit and comfort nuances, even though the clamping force and headband padding design are things that actually shape the day-to-day feel of using it. They mention all-day comfort prominently, but I found that comfort is something you have to earn by breaking them in a bit. Especially if you wear glasses, I always find it interesting what brands emphasize and what they quietly leave out. These headphones became my default pair for work sessions and evening listening at home within a couple of days. I naturally reached for them when I knew I'd be sitting for a few hours editing videos or reviewing products, because I didn't have to think about charging them constantly. The battery life genuinely changes your relationship with the headphones. You stop treating them like something fragile that needs babysitting and just use them. What I didn't expect to appreciate was how intuitive the physical buttons became after the first day. At first I fumbled around trying to remember which tiny button did what, but by day 3, I was adjusting volume and skipping tracks without thinking about it. The tactile feedback is surprisingly satisfying once you get used to the layout. The bass-heavy sound signature grew on me in ways I wasn't anticipating. I'm usually someone who prefers a more neutral profile, but the warmth and low-end presence made longer listening sessions feel less fatiguing. Almost like the sound was wrapping around me rather than being analytically precise. That warmth can mask some detail, but it also makes background music more enjoyable when I'm not critically listening. You don't really notice how much the lack of a carrying case changes your setup until you go back to something else. I found myself being more deliberate about where I set them down, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does mean that they feel less portable than other headphones I've used. The clamping force is tighter than I'd like, especially during the first few hours of wear. It's not a deal breaker, but something I kept noticing, particularly when wearing glasses. The pressure on the arms becomes noticeable after about an hour, and I found myself adjusting the position to relieve it. The noise cancellation struggles with low-frequency rumble, one of the small things that only becomes obvious after a few commutes on a bus or plane, where you realize that engine noise is coming through more than you'd expect from a pair of ANC headphones in this category. There's no carrying case included, which feels like an odd omission at this price point. It doesn't ruin the experience, but it's there. You notice it every time you pack them into a bag and wonder if they're going to get scratched or bent. So if you're the kind of person who prioritizes battery life and warning-based forward sound for casual listening, commuting, or long work sessions, the Sennheiser Accentum Wireless is absolutely worth it. The 50-hour battery genuinely changes how you use headphones. You stop worrying about charging and just listen. But if your day is mostly spent in extremely noisy environments like airplanes or subway cars, and you need top-tier noise cancellation to block out low-frequency engine rumble, the difference in ANC performance compared to models like the Sony WH-1000XM4 may not be worth the savings. You'll find yourself wishing for the extra isolation. There's a quiet satisfaction in using something that just works without demanding constant attention. The Accentum delivers that.